Hello and welcome to my little kitchen in Japan. My name is Jeremy and this is Home Cooked Abroad. Today we'll be making nabe, also known as Japanese hot pot. This is one of my favorite dishes and it's really great if you're just getting started with Japanese cuisine because once you get the basic broth down, you can really add whatever ingredients you like to it. I have an assortment of vegetables here today. I'll show you how to make the broth. I'll show you how to make some meatballs to put in the broth. So stick around. Hope you enjoy this live stream. If you have any questions throughout the live stream, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll answer them as best I can live. So thank you so much for being here. Let's get started. Today I also want to show you how to make the broth completely from dashi. In the past I've used granulated dashi, which is great. It works very well. But today I'm going to show you how to make it from kombu and katsuobushi. In my last live stream I had a question about what's in dashi, so today I'll show you how to make it. If you are watching live, please say hello in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. All right, and there is a slight delay, so if I don't answer right away, just be patient for a minute. Okay. So today you'll need all right. So I have a cutting board here that of course we'll be using to prepare everything, and then also I have a nabe. This is a donabe, a clay pot. I've had this for many years. It's really great. I look forward to taking it out every winter when the weather gets cold. So today we'll be making the yose nabe, a really basic one. So to make the dashi, you'll need some kombu. So this is dried seaweed. Kind of looks like this. It's dried kelp. This is originally what MSG was derived from. So now it's used to soak in water and gives the flavor a lot of great broth. So that's what we'll do first. So the first thing we will do, and also we have the kombu here. The other ingredient is katsuobushi. This is dried and shaved skipjack tuna flakes. It brings a smokiness to the dashi. So I'll show you how to get started with those. First, let's get about 800 milliliters of water into our clay pot. And the first thing you would typically do is actually just soak these in water. Again, if you're cooking along right now and you just have the granulated dashi, that's totally fine too. Use about a tablespoon of dashi for this 800 milliliters of water. So we will let the kombu just hang out for a couple of minutes. So usually you can also soak this for about an hour or two ahead of time, but we'll let that soak as we get everything else ready. All right, so for a few people watching, all right. So Susie says, hey, looking forward to making hot pot. Thank you for joining again. Thank you for cooking along. And Yuki Aragaki says, I love kombu dashi. Yes, it's very good. So it brings a lot of umami taste. So I had a question about that in my last live stream about what does each part bring. I think the kombu brings that really rich, deep umami flavor, and the katsuobushi brings a nice smokiness to it. They also asked if you need to season if you're using dashi, and really you don't need to because the kombu has so much richness to it. You don't actually need to, but you can always adjust later if necessary. Okay, so let's we'll turn on the heat. The first step is just boiling that kombu, and then we'll take it out and then put in the katsuobushi flakes after. In the meantime, let's get some ingredients ready. That's a lot of preparing vegetables in this live stream. So the classics for a hot pot would be some cabbage. This is a napa cabbage, but any greens that you like would work just fine. Bok choy is something I really like in it. I also have some chrysanthemum greens that I picked up. You know, it's really flexible, whatever kind of greens you like. I also have a carrot. I'll show you how to cut that into strips. Long green onion, which I actually use the top green part for another braised dish, kokuni, earlier this week, but we will definitely use this stem in the broth. Also, really great for hot pots, mushrooms. I have 2 varieties here. We have the classic shiitake mushrooms and some enoki, which are these really cool bunch mushrooms. I really like these a lot. So if you're cooking along, so those are the basic vegetables. We'll get those prepared first, and then I'll show you how to make the meatballs. But if you're cooking along, you'll need some kind of dish or a plate to get everything ready and prepared. So let's do that. All right, we have Hyokyo9 joining in the chat saying, hey, I love your recipes a lot, and thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing that. That's awesome. Okay, so let's get started. So this is a long green onion, naganegi in Japan. It looks like a leek, but it's actually a little different, a lot different, I guess. Leeks are usually a little thicker, have more layers, and sweet when you saute them. This really does taste like an onion, harsh. You want to make sure this is cooked because it is not so nice raw. So we will cut this like about that big, centimeter or maybe a 1/4 of an inch wide. So we'll cut that on an angle and have a few strips just like that. For everyone in the chat, have you made a hot pot before? And if so, what's your favorite style of hot pot? Because there are many. So let's see, get everything ready. Okay, so here we have our green onions. We'll just put those aside. I always like to keep a tray like this at the ready for everything to go in. You know, use what you have. So the carrot, we have a carrot here. I think I want to put these in as like strips. So I think I want about like about this long strips. That's maybe 2 inches to 4 to 5 centimeters. Don't quote me on the exact measurements for converting live. I'm not quite sure. So we'll just use about that much. You don't need a whole lot. And we'll take this and just give it a quick peel. Okay, I got a question in the chat about green onions. Let me check on that. Okay, so I have a question. So if you're using scallions, do we only use the white part? That's a great question. Yeah, you can use the green part of that too, definitely. So I would maybe cut the white part on a bias, maybe a little longer strips, and then when you get towards the green part, you can cut it more circular, and we'll use that more as like a topping later. But yeah, that's a great question. And Hyokyo says, hey, yeah, I followed your miso hot pot recipe, and I've been doing it a lot in the winter, and that's awesome. Thank you so much, and I'm glad you like the miso hot pot. It is really great. Like today we're making like the really basic soy-based hot pot, but the miso one, it has just such a rich flavor because you actually grate like ginger and garlic right into the broth, and so I really enjoy that one too. So I'm glad you like the recipe. Okay, so here we have our carrot, and yes, Karen said that is a pretty big carrot. So yeah, they do come pretty thick here in Japan. So to cut these, and even if you have like a smaller carrot, what I like to do is just cut off one side, and you give it a flat side to stabilize it, and then just cut some strips like this. Okay, and then you can stack them up, and then just cut them through so you have some nice even strips. You don't want them too thick when they're going in the hot pot. You don't want them to be, too hard by the time all the other vegetables cut. So something like that would be great. And again, with hot pots, less is more. So it looks like, oh, it's only a little bit of carrots, but with everything else, you don't want one ingredient overpowering everything else. So we'll put that aside for later. Next, let's get out the mushrooms. These are, the classic shiitake mushrooms, but really any mushrooms work great in hot pots like this. So I also have a huge pack of shimeji mushrooms, which are also really cool and bunched up. Also, I just grabbed a bunch of ingredients yesterday trying to figure out what kind of hot pot I'd like to make, and so just in case, I just grabbed a whole bunch of different ingredients and see how I felt this morning on how I would cook them. So I'll just give those a quick rinse to get off any dirt or anything like that. So for this, the classic thing to do is cut kazarikiri, which is a cross shape in the top of the mushroom. So you can do that by coming in to the center of the mushroom at like a 45-degree angle, turning it around, and cutting out the center like that. And doing that at 90 degrees to that first cross, and then you have a nice cross shape like that. It's for, it looks pretty. It looks, I think a lot of Japanese cuisine, you show that attention to detail, but I think it also helps get the inside of the mushroom cooked at the same time as the outside, so you have a perfectly cooked mushroom in the soup. All right, let me okay. Hold on 1 second. I'm not seeing the GoPro come up, but Susie says it is working, so I'm not sure how that's going. But of course, these things are bound to happen when cooking live, so it's only my second time out, but still have some things to work through. So we'll just keep cutting mushrooms and see if that comes back on. cut in at an angle, turn it around, cut again, and do the same thing perpendicularly. All right, there we have those. And next we have some enoki mushrooms, which are super easy to prepare. I really like these. They're really fun. I mean, they have these cool bunch look like that, kind of wild looking. Easy to prepare. We don't want the whole bunch, so we'll take just a few. This one's already broken, so we'll take a few pieces off like that, and just cut off the root end. So with the root end, and you can clear cutting board. And break them apart into little bunches like that. Are you able to get enoki mushrooms where you're from? Let me know in the chat if you've ever seen them or if you've ever cooked with them. Just give the ends a rinse in case any dirt or debris stuck to those, and set those aside. All right, hey guys, sorry, just 1 second. I don't know. Perhaps the camera didn't like the heat, so I'm just resetting my camera over here. Maybe it didn't like the heat being over the open pot. You know, technology issues. Sometimes we have those. All right, but in the meantime, I'll have some comments to answer. So, yeah, at the Chinese store, I find them and love using them with Korean noodles. That's awesome. Yeah, I really like enoki mushrooms. They're really fun, have a good texture to them. Oh, yeah. So, Hyokyo says, I love the texture of enoki mushrooms so much. Yeah, me too. I think they have a nice, fun little bite to them when you bite into them. All right, looks like no overhead camera today, so that's too bad. Doesn't want to turn back on, but let me adjust the main camera so you can at least see what's going on. And here we are. So this is what I wanted to show you. Here's the kombu. It's really hydrated back. So I think it's been about 10 minutes. We'll let that go for another minute. Again, if you're just using regular dashi, then just a tablespoon of dashi would be fine instead too. I will actually be posting a video on how to make a dashi just like this in about a week or so. I think that's my next regular video. I'll show you how to make a miso soup with a dashi from scratch, but this is kind of a sneak peek for all of you joining here and watching live. Really appreciate that. So that is that. And next we have to prepare our meat. Okay, but I think because I have to adjust the camera again, let's call this now. So to prepare the dashi, just give it a little wider shot. So what we'll do is prepare a bowl, turn off the heat, and typically you'd want to take this a little bit longer, like 20 minutes or so, but it's okay for this time. So we'll take out that, and then you have a kombu dashi. And you'll also take about 20 grams or so of the katsuobushi flakes and let them just steep in the kombu dashi. You could strain this after, but we'll just like strain it through a strainer and bowl, but I'll just use a little mesh spider here to remove it. So let's let that steep like just 5 minutes or so, and in the meantime we'll make our meatballs. So let me readjust the camera. And yeah, thanks for, and bear with me a little. My overhead camera died, so I'm not sure what happened there, but I have to do this a couple times. I'll try not to make it too annoying, but but that's what happens sometimes, and you just in production, and you just gotta do the best you can. Okay. All right. So for our meatballs, we will use some chicken. So I have some ground chicken here. I know that in the US it's kind of not so common to find ground chicken. It's more like ground turkey. Ground turkey works, but really anything that you like will work for this recipe. So for that, we will need another little bowl. And this is just about 200 grams or so. It's not much, and you don't need much. Again, there'll be plenty of little meatballs in the soup. So this is a really fun method of, so I get my grater. So this is a really fun method of making the meatballs, because we're gonna mix together all of this meat here together in a bowl and then just spoon it into the broth once it's ready. So the key flavorings will be some ginger. So we'll just grate some ginger. It's grated ginger in a meatball like that gives it just so much flavor. And you can make sure that the skin is clean, but you can actually just leave the skin on. It doesn't make huge difference for a grated version like this. If you really wanted very like clean ginger, of course you can just take off the skin, but just a little bit. So we'll just grate some ginger directly into the ground meat like this. If you don't have like a grater like this, you can also use like a cheese grater or a microplane, and it'll do a similar type of job. And you really don't need much, maybe like a half a teaspoon or so. I mean, so we only have a little bit of meat here, so don't want to go too crazy with that. And then we also have garlic, similar kind of thing. We will peel this garlic. Instead of like crushing it like I normally would for like an Italian sauce, I do want this intact so that I can grate it. If you crush it, it becomes a little harder to grate. Let me take the garlic clove and do the same thing. Great. Grated ginger and grated garlic are awesome together. So you can also do this same thing in like a meat marinade if you're making like a shogayaki or buta kimchi stir fries, which I also have on my channel. You can do the same thing when you marinate the meat. Just grate in some ginger, garlic, a little soy sauce, sesame oil, sake, and let that marinate for a bit before stir frying. I got some new questions. Well, as I drop my garlic. Okay, so that's all we need. Just a little bit like that. And as already hinted, we'll add in just like a teaspoon of soy sauce. Don't want much. I mean, one, you don't want it too salty, but also at the same time, you don't want it, you don't want too many wet ingredients in, or else might be too moist to form into meatballs. And just a little sake I added there too. You can also add just a little salt and pepper if you like, and I will add a drizzle of sesame oil. Let's do just a little bit of pepper. Okay, so we have our ground meat there, and we really want to mix this together so it's kind of like a paste. So I will use a kitchen prep glove. You don't have to if you don't want to. You could just, use your hands and wash them after. But we can do this really bring it together so it's really smooth. Oh, yeah. And then once it is, and yeah, maybe I don't know if it was better or worse to use this during a live stream. It doesn't look the most pleasant, but whatever. Once it's pretty smooth like that, we will add the secret ingredient to a lot of the dishes that we make here, which would be some starch. And starch will help bind it and hold it together. And also keep it juicy. So I'm a big fan of using starch in these recipes. So I guess today we don't have katakuriko, but I do have a little cornstarch, so that's fine too. So we'll just add a little bit, like 2 teaspoons or so. And then mix that together. Use a spoon this time, so I don't have to get out another glove. And you can mix that together so the starch is well incorporated. Really smooth. You want it as smooth as possible. And that'll give for a nice texture once we cook it in the soup itself. Okay, and that is basically it. Like, if you smell it, you can smell the garlic in it. It smells really good, but we'll need to cook it first to make sure that the flavoring is good. With time, you'll figure it out of like how much seasoning you like. So that is our mixture for that. We'll just drop that in the soup with a couple spoons once we are ready. And I'll get my station clean and get back to our soup in just a minute. So all right, so let me just take a quick break for the chat. And we have a few newcomers, and thank you. Oh, awesome. So quite a few chats have come in, so thank you so much for joining, and thank you for watching. So Karen says, is dashi very salty? No, not super salty. You typically use like soy sauce or something with that. Maybe some salt you can adjust with. It just has that rich umami taste to it. Hyo Kyo says, I hope the overhead camera is fine though. Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too. That was a little disappointing, but let me see once we get the soup started if I can get that going again. All right, James Barkran. I hope I said that right, or just James. He says, hi, good morning from Pokua. Well, good morning. Thank you for joining me here in Tokyo. Kyo says it's 3 a.m. here, and I'm craving nabe now. Well, wow, thank you so much for staying up to 3 a.m. That's awesome. He's in Italy. That's amazing. All right, and Jewel in the kitchen says hello. So hello, thank you. Hello everyone, thank you for joining. Hyokyo also says just learning and might do nabe next Monday. I'm craving it so bad. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this recipe. Feel free to cook along if you do get all the ingredients ready. And then Susie asks, my meatballs are not that smooth. What can make it smoother? I think you're gonna want to either use your hands or a food prep glove and really just make them as smooth as possible. You could use a food processor if you want to get them really smooth, but you know, maybe a little more sake might help smooth it out. But it's fine if they aren't too smooth. You know that you know, a little texture isn't too bad. You know, make it yours, however you like it. Okay, so because the overhead camera is not working, I'm not going to change the main camera until we're ready to throw everything in. So I will just stick with this webcam for removing all of our katsuobushi from this. And let's see, I am running out of bowls a little bit, but that's okay. So, and you know what, this isn't the prettiest of all the actions that we'll do today, so maybe it's okay you don't have a close-up shot of this. This is removing all the katsuo flakes from the dashi itself. So that's really all you need to do to make a dashi. When I first started this channel and when I first did this video as just a regular video, I used the granulated dashi, but recently I started making it like this with some kombu and some packets of dashi, and it comes out so great. So that's why I thought for this version, change it up a little bit and show you how to make it like this. Okay, so we have pretty much everything ready. We have our vegetables, our meat, and actually we do have some tofu and greens, so I do need to cut those, and one other form of meat, some pork belly. In Japan they come in some lovely cut strips like this already. Wash my hands. Okay. But you can use whatever you like. Chicken thigh works really well. Beef, of course. Fish, seafood, anything you have, anything you like will work well in a nabe. So, you know, have fun and experiment with it, but that's what I'm using today. Let me switch back to my main camera as I just clean up a couple of things. And if you have any more questions in the chat, feel free to leave them here now. Again, I thank you all for joining me live here in the kitchen. I'm really glad to be cooking for you, and I hope you cook along or cook this for yourself later. If you do have anything else, so I am planning on doing more live streams. I think one of the best parts is interacting with all of you live and getting your questions. So if you do have a recipe that you'd like to see live or cook along live, let me know in the chat, and I might try to schedule something in the next couple of weeks. Hold on. Yeah, that blocks the camera. Let me this over there. And knife. Okay. All right, and to get our other cabbage ready, should have cut that earlier. I'll get out another knife and get another knife and board for that. So I was thinking the vegetables were looking a little light. Okay, so this is a napa cabbage. So obviously we won't be cooking all of this, so just cut off a good wedge. It will shrink a bit, so I'll just take off the root ends here. And flip it over. And actually, so yeah, this part's a little thick. Sometimes these cabbages do have some sand or dirt, so you just rinse off the ends. And we'll cut into like maybe 1.5 centimeters or like 1/2 inch. Again, don't quote me on all the measurements, all the conversions, I should say. I've gotten quite used to the metric system while living here, so I'm not always sure how they convert, but I know it in context. All right, so these thicker parts will go into the soup earlier, while the leaves we will save for later. Okay, so I think we're almost there, so let's get the main camera back on to the Nabe. So let me just adjust real quick, and thanks for bearing with me as I'm having some technical difficulties today. But you know, that's how it goes sometimes. So let's get back on our Nabe and put it all together. So really this can be quite a quick dish. I mean, this is like a quick weeknight meal. Like if I want to throw something together, just grab some ingredients at the supermarket on my way home, and I can throw this together pretty quick when I'm not adjusting cameras and things like that. So here we are. We're back. We have our Nabe in focus here, I hope. So let's turn that back on. The first thing we want to do with our dashi is add a tablespoon of sake. So add some sake. This is actually like the really big boxes of sake that you can buy, usually for drinking, but this is also recommended for cooking as well. So we've been using that little nicer flavor. And to that we'll also add about a tablespoon or so of soy sauce. And to round it out, some mirin. And this is also another reason why I really like this recipe for just getting started with Japanese cuisine, because it uses really all the essentials of Japanese cooking. So once you collect all these different ingredients, soy sauce, sake, mirin, and dashi, this is the perfect dish to get started with, and then from there you can use those same ingredients to make really most other dishes in Japanese cuisine. So it's really great for that. So let's let that simmer a little. We can give that a taste to make sure that it's tasting good. Let me just check. Oh, Tao says hello. Hello, thank you for joining. Welcome in. How much, and then Susie says, how much chicken do we need? So I would say, I usually like, let me switch back to my main camera as I answer. So how much chicken do you need? I would use probably just 1 thigh or less. You don't really need a whole lot. And what you want to do with chicken, if you're using chicken, is just cut it into like bite-sized pieces. Maybe like 1 inch by 1 inch, or a couple centimeters by a couple centimeters, so they're nice bite-sized pieces. You don't want anything too big. And the same goes well, basically you want anything as small as possible. If you're using beef also like very thin strips of beef would be good too. So I hope you're using thighs. I like thigh meat in nabes like this because they stay very tender and don't get overcooked too quickly. I probably wouldn't use breast meat unless it was cut very thinly and then just kind of cooked very quick. I haven't seen that much. There might be a type of nabe somewhere in some region like that, but I would probably avoid breast meat. So thigh meat would probably be good. One thigh or less, cut into small pieces. If you have any other questions, Yuki Aragaki says, "I like cutting it small." Yes, definitely. I sometimes get some complaints that maybe I cut meat a little too big in the nabe. Well, I shouldn't say I cut it. I buy them pre-cut because, I mean, Japanese supermarkets are awesome. I mean, if you go to a supermarket for nabe, they have everything you need already ready for the nabe. So you just bring it home and you can throw it all together. I guess that's also why it's a great weeknight meal. You can throw it together quite easily. So yeah, I just like to use them as is, but some people prefer to cut them a little smaller. Okay, so we're coming up to a simmer now, so let's get back to that. But thank you for all the questions. I really appreciate that. So here we are, and this is our basic dashi simmering. And again, you can use the granulated. And actually, I wanted to show you how to make it from scratch because this is kind of like my, they do have the pre-made nabe bases at the supermarket, but that's like something that either they're too salty or for my own like existential reasons, like, oh, what if I'm abroad and I can't get the soup bases, then what am I going to do? So that's why I wanted to try to figure out how to make it like this, and of course taste much better. So start with your harder vegetables first. So we will start by adding in the cabbage, the napa cabbage, and carrots. And the green onions is not necessarily a harder vegetable, but it does add a lot of flavor to the broth. And like I mentioned, these can taste really oniony, so you don't want to have them undercooked. Once they're nice and soft, they taste awesome. So let's get those in there. And actually, you know what? One other great thing about nabes is that you could just throw everything in at the same time also. So let's just do that. The only thing I'm going to reserve is the greens of the cabbage, because they don't need as long to cut. So let's just throw those in. Save the greens for later. And I'll let that come up to a simmer before I throw in the meat. Okay. All right, so we'll let that come up just to a simmer. All right, how's everyone doing? If you are cooking live, what step are you at? Do you have everything in? And also, if you don't have a clay pot like this, it's fine. You can use whatever large pot, not too high. I mean, I think you do want things low, just it's easier to get things in and out. So wide, large pot, anything that you have should be fine. So, but if you do have a clay pot, they're really great to use. So I recommend them having. Hyokyo asks, I wish we had thick green onions here as well. Usually they are thin. Yeah, I never really saw green onions like this until moving to Japan. So yeah, even back in the US, they're kind of in between what you have here in Japan. They're a little thicker than the small green onions you get here, but not quite as thick as these here. So I think I'll prepare these for topping later, but if I can get them out. So you can prepare some green onions like this. Oh, and then one more. So I got packs of 2 of these. Since they're in season right now, you can get these for like $1.50 or 2 of them. I cut off both the tops and used them to flavor kakuni simmering liquid the other day. So that's why they would usually have those tops, but they're a little harder. So usually they're good for flavoring soups. Even I would throw them in like nabe early on, like at the dashi stage, and let those simmer. But they're not too pleasant. The tops of these aren't too pleasant to eat. But these are. So these are the green onions you get in Japan. Either very thin like this, and these are good for dicing and putting on top of dishes, or a long green onion like this, which are really thick. All right, Tanya says, ours are thin too. Those look good. Thank you. Hyokyo says, they look like leeks. Yes, they do look like leeks, but that's very suspicious because they don't taste anything like leeks. Sometimes I would like to have some leeks if I'm making like a soup or something here, maybe more a French style dish. I would love to get some leeks here, but that's something I can't get here. Tao asks, is your donabe from Iga? I'm obsessed with donabe. Yes, I know you are. We follow each other on Instagram, and I've seen your collection of donabe, and that's awesome. Mine I got actually at Muji. I got this at Muji almost probably 10 years ago, and I'm still using it. So yeah, just Muji. And for anyone else not watching, who's not in Japan, Muji or Mujirushi has a bunch of different household items without branding. The branding is the no brands kind of thing. I think Canada has something similar with like no name, but they are just good quality things, cheap, and yeah, they're everywhere. And they have lots of great household items, including kitchen things that are just really simple, easy to use. And they had this beautiful green nabe, and I picked it up a few years ago and have been using it ever since. So we don't have, Susie says, we don't have those around here. These are scallions, but they call them green onions, and then there are leeks. Yeah, so in the US, you either have very thin green onions, kind of similar to these, or leeks, which I guess would be good for more French-style soups. Really great sauteed in butter for making a soup base. But yeah, unfortunately, I cannot get those. Okay, so let me get back to our hot pot. It's coming up to a simmer. So make sure it's not this. You might see some foam come up on the surface, and that's completely normal, completely natural. So if you are just using a ladle, you can skim it out like this and remove it. Or this isn't a must, just because you're here and in my kitchen and I have something to show you. I'll show you a cool little Japanese tool. If you take a little bowl of water, and this I got, I think, specifically for nabes, is a little like flat mesh strainer that's perfect for just skimming out the top of any of those impurities as they come up as you're simmering the nabe. And then just giving them a dip in the water, and that'll remove everything. So that'll really clear up the soup. I mean, I think that's definitely one of the appeals of Japanese cuisine, and just how pretty and elegant it looks. And So taking these extra little steps to make sure that, you know, their soup looks clear and things like that, I think go a long way. So the soup looks much nicer now. So vegetables are getting cooked through. So at this point, I'm going to add in some meat. I'll get a couple of saibashi, which are the longer chopsticks, and a couple of spoons for the meatballs. Yeah. Have one of these stoves. It's like a safety stove. It decides when it thinks it's cooked long enough or when it's getting too hot. So it'll just turn off by itself. Okay. So let's go a little wider. Some saibashi. Have some pork belly here, which I'll just kind of find a good spot for it and add it to the hot pot. If it's too long, you can use some kitchen shears to cut it in half, but these aren't too long. For me, they wouldn't be too long. I think maybe someone else that lives here might say that they're a little too long, that I should cut them, but I'm fine with these. So you can just add those in. We'll keep our bowl of water and strainer at the ready, because once we add the meat in, we'll probably see a lot more of those impurities come up. So we'll skim those off the surface once they do. So the great thing about this nabe too is that, I mean, typically, I'm making it on a stove today, but you can also get like a portable gas burner, and these are typically like just eaten at the center of the table, very similar to, you know, what you do with Chinese hot pots too, where you have it at the center of the table, keep adding ingredients in, keep eating it, and, you know, just repeat the process until you run out of ingredients or you're full, whichever happens first. Let's get a little organized over here. And there was one other thing I didn't add, which I think I'll add some aburage. It's also a good time for that. Let's switch back. I'm also going to add some aburage. So this is it's fried tofu that's become like really flat. You can get the thicker ones, atsuage, which is called bean curd in the US. That's really great. Or if you just have regular tofu, use that as well. I kind of like the flavor that this brings, so I'm going to add just some of this as well. I think one thing, if looking back on some of the videos I've made in the past, one thing that kind of annoys me about that first nabe video that I made was the first thing I did when I had the dashi ready was put a soft tofu in. And as I did it, I realized my mistake. I was like, oh no, I'm going to be tossing all the other vegetables on top of that. It's probably going to break apart. So yeah, usually you would want to add the tofu like after all the vegetables. It doesn't need long to cook, so yeah, just be careful of that. You know, it's always good to learn from your lessons. But you know, as a video I made, I had to go with it. But now I can share that all with you here live. Let's take a little break and take a look at the chat. All right. Tao says, really? Oh, I love the color. I cannot find that now. And I love Muji also. Yeah, yeah, it was like, they just had a bunch of beautiful colors. And yeah, since then they have like more like just neutral, more brown tones. But yeah, they had a bunch of cool colors when I was there one time. And Tao says, I have that strainer too from Muji. Yeah, it probably is from Muji. I think I like Muji things because they're really simple and really, you know, no frills, you know, but really easy to use, really good. So it looks good. I'll do that next week. Awesome. Thank you. Hyo asks, how long have you been living in Japan, if I may ask? I never went to Japan, but my ex was from Shiga. Okay. So she got me exposed to Japanese food, and I miss eating nabe. So I found your channel. Oh wow, great. Well, thank you for the questions. So I've been in Japan almost 13 years now. Pretty much after college, I started looking for jobs here in Japan because I studied abroad. I studied abroad here and then came back, and yeah, I haven't left since. I really enjoy living here in Japan. And Shiga, yeah, did you? Oh, so your ex was from Shiga. Okay, yeah, Shiga is close to Kyoto. Has a big lake, Lake Biwa. Of course, the food is also great there. That's one of the fun things about traveling in Japan is each place has its unique specialty that you got to try. And I think when I was in Shiga, I must have had it's famous for a beef dish. So I think I had beef while I was there in Shiga. But yeah, thank you for joining, and I'm glad you found the channel. And yeah, I hope you make nabe. And that's one of the other things, one of the other reasons I want to make this channel is from that perspective. If you've ever been to Japan, you lived in Japan, maybe you've left Japan and think, oh, how did I make that? Or how did they make that? Like, I want to try that. That's what this channel is for. So I'm so glad you found it, and glad you're watching. So thank you. So when do you add the meatballs? Great question. Let's get back to that. So let's just skim the top. Everything's getting soft. So, I mean, we're almost there. Meatballs don't need too long to cut because we're not going to cook, because we're not going to be making them so big. But it's good that all these vegetables are cooked through before we add the last two ingredients, because tofu and meatballs will be quite quick. So skim that. Add in the aburage. And now let's do the meatballs. So we have our meatball mix here. I'm just going to, oh, yep, again, running out of space. It's always a challenge in Japan. Just grab a little, and with 2 spoons, and kind of form it into a ball as best you can, like that, and then use the other spoon to just push it in. So form 2 little spheres as best you can. They don't have to be perfect shaped. You know, a little rustic look is fine. And let those just get into the broth, and they'll cook as we put them in. And just keep dropping them in like that. And rustic is totally fine. You know, this is all about, you know, home cooked dish, gathering around nice warm hot pot in the winter. Not really too concerned about everything, you know, looking perfect, but just like that is fine. Let me make a little more room to get the rest in. They're just kind of hanging out on top, so make sure that they get in the soup so they cook through. I think I have 1 or 2 more I can add right into the soup. All right, and our meatballs are in. All right, and that's looking pretty good. So, oh, Tanya asks a great question. Okay, so Tanya asks a great question. It's what kind of seafood works best in a nabe? And that actually, that's a great question, because a lot of the seafood, or the meatballs you would get here in Japan are made from fish, or maybe even shrimp. You can get some shrimp meatballs, or some sumide, which I think might have some kind of sardine or something like that that's ground up and made into a very smooth ball like that. I haven't made them myself, but if I were, I would probably use shrimp. I would use shrimp and probably use a processor so that they get really nice and finely ground up, and then add in the starch and seasoning to that. So I would probably go shrimp just because I know how it can be ground up. Fish, I'm not super sure of. You can do the same exact thing, but yeah, probably use a food processor. But yeah, if not, if you just have some fish and shrimp with you now, and you can throw those into the nabe as is. But thanks for the question. That's a really great question. One nabe I've been making a little more recently is kind of a Korean-inspired one called like a spicy seafood nabe. So I think I might feature that on my channel as just a regular video. So I'm looking forward to sharing these new recipes that I've been cooking recently with all of you. So but thanks for the question. So we're almost there now. So we'll get back to the hot pot and just make sure that the meatballs are cooked through. Give them a flip. If you still have a few of the meatballs just kind of sticking out at the top. These were a little softer, I have to admit, than maybe I would have liked, but that's not terrible. Just be careful not to break them. If they do come out too soft, then just add a little more starch, and starch will really help tighten them up once they're cooked. So yeah, this one's falling apart a little. Oh well, what are you gonna do? Okay, and with those in, you can start taking out and eating what is already cooked through. So you can get a little bowl, and you could just serve this in the center of the table and ladle some food. I'll get a different ladle that didn't use to touch the meat. And you can grab some, turn down the heat. So the cabbage is cooked through, so that's a good sign. That's what we want. We want it nice and smooth. Just lower that a little. You can add a little more water and dashi if it's evaporating too much. So just ladle out what's cooked through, add it to your bowl, and enjoy. And then you could keep adding things back in. I still have some cabbage to add in. As you can see, the green onions have gotten very soft, so those will be nice and flavorful. Let's see, maybe one of these smaller meatballs is probably cooked through, so you can add that in the carrots as well. Okay. Go back to main camera. And there we have our little bowl of ingredients cooked in the nabe. And you can just keep taking ingredients out, eating them, and keep adding back in until you're full. So I'll add the greens back in once I remove some things. And then finally, I don't think I'll be able to eat all of this now, so I don't think I'll be able to demonstrate live. But at the end, once you're left with that flavorful broth, you can throw in a packet of udon to soak that all up, and that'll be your shime, which is what you usually add to a broth to finish it up, to soak it. So that is our nabe. I will grab a couple of chopsticks and let's see how we did. So I want to make sure that the meatball is cooked through. So since they are just spooned in, yeah, they don't need too long to cook. Super soft, super flavorful. The garlic does come through. You can use a little less if you don't want too much garlic taste, or if you want more garlic taste, go for it. Just add as much as you like. Some pork belly. Yeah, everything is soft, cooked through, and that's what's great about this dish is that you can pack as many vegetables in as you like. So I think it's relatively healthy too for you. So I mean, if you do follow me on Instagram, I'm probably making this 2 or 3 times a week during the winter. I always look forward to taking out the clay pot once it gets cold and making that first nabe of the season. So yeah, that's basically it. We'll keep adding ingredients in, keep eating, then throw the udon in, and that's really how you make Japanese hot pot. Very good. So there's also, you can also adjust and make different flavored ones. This is really the basic like soy based broth, yose nabe. As Hyokyo mentioned before, they found me making the miso nabe. That's really rich, has a lot of deep flavor. I also like kimchi nabe or kimchi jjigae in the Korean. That's just has a lot of great spice to it. Pork, kimchi together. That's so good. And what else? Then there's also some regional varieties. Like in Nara, I found one of the most unique ones was like asuka nabe, which is like milk-based nabe, which is really good. Which is surprising. I don't usually like milk. Tanya says that sounds good. We'll have to try it. Well, thank you. I hope it works out well for you. Susie says this looks amazing. Thank you. I hope you enjoy it. Tanya says looks delicious. Thank you. Awesome. I hope you give it a try, or I hope you're making it now. You know, Tanya's cooked along at some of our other Zoom cooking lessons, so hope you are either cooking or cook it later. Tao says, and spamming kimchi soup. Yes, yes. I think spam is used in Asian dishes without prejudice. It finds its way in a lot of different dishes, and it's a guilty pleasure. It is delicious, and you can put it in a kimchi soup, and it'll be very good. Karen says, thank you for your presentation. I'll try it soon. It looks good. Well, thank you. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it comes out well for you. And yeah, feel free to, adjust it as much as you like with the ingredients that you put in. So, depending on the mushrooms you can buy, like I use a lot of different Japanese style mushrooms, but, just regular mushrooms that you can find are probably fine too. Though shiitake, maybe you can find shiitake a lot more these days. Tofu, the greens, yeah, have fun with the greens. You can use even like spinach, like a fresh spinach, bok choy, also really great. So have fun with it. Let me know what works best for you. All right, so I think that's basically it. So I'm just gonna turn off the heat for now. Like I mentioned, if you do finish everything, and I'm not gonna be eating a whole nabe on camera at the moment, so I won't be able to get to just the soup base left. So once you do eat everything from the nabe though, you can throw in a pack of udon. And just a quick thing about the different udon that you can add. These in Japan already come like par cooked, so these are great for stir fries. They're great for soups because you don't need to boil them first. You can just throw them into whatever you're making. But I realize that wherever you are, you might not be able to find udon. So, or udon like this, I should say. So if you get a dry udon, you can boil it separately, drain it, and then toss it into your soup. Or if you have a fresh udon, that's also something you would want to par cook separately, so you can get them like this. If you try to throw in fresh udon directly into a nabe, you will end up with a gloopy mess because all of the flour and starch from the fresh udon will thicken the soup. So just be careful of that. So just be mindful of what kind of udon you have. If you have a par-cooked one like this, if you're able to get it in your local Asian market, definitely use this. Super simple to add into a hot pot to finish. If you're dried or fresh, just boil them separate in another pot, drain them, rinse them off, and then toss them in. So, but other things, you can use whatever noodles you like. There's also Nabe ramen that you can get. Just cook some ramen separately, throw it in, and that's really good to finish. Also, maroni-chan. It's one of my favorites. I got a huge kilogram of maroni-chan. It's a glass noodle, harusame, but it has a really nice texture. I got a whole big kilo of this, which is like 2.5 pounds. So that conversion I knew. So use what you have. I love putting the glass noodles in. Glass noodles also, you don't have to boil separately. You can throw them in and let them cook. All right, Tao says, thank you for your presentation. Well, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you joining in again. Hope you make nabe soon. Hope you like it. All right, so I think that's about it for today. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask a question. If not, I think that's about it. So I really appreciate you all for joining me in my kitchen on this Sunday morning over in Asia, or Saturday evening if you're in the US, and I think and one of you joined in the middle of the night from Europe, so I appreciate that. I'm going to keep doing these hopefully pretty regularly, so if there's anything you'd like me to cook live, or if you'd like to cook live as well, just let me know. I'm really happy to be able to interact with all of you here live, so it's been a lot of fun. So I will continue doing these live streams, and so I'll see you in the next one. I think maybe next week or the week after. I'm thinking of doing a Japanese curry next, because I did the Japanese curry in a pressure cooker, but I realized maybe not everyone has a pressure cooker, so I just want to show the really basic one live, and it's one of the best comfort foods in Japan, so I think I want to show you how to put that together. All right, Asana by Ari, my sister, says, hi Jeremy, love you, I love you too, and she's coming to Japan in a few weeks. I'm very excited to show my sister Japan. All right, and Hyokyo, who joined us from 3 a.m. live in Europe, says, thanks a lot for the video. Time for me to sleep. Have a great meal, a great day. Well, thank you for joining in the middle of the night. I hope you make this meal. Hope you enjoy it. So thank you. Susie says, you rock. Thank you. And Tanya says, thank you. Can't wait for curry. Well, I will be happy to make some. So that will probably be my next next video, probably. Okay. All right, so that's it for me. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the next live stream. So thank you.